The boy with this cute face. Is our main character, Zeke Eldragon, don't think he's just a newborn and underestimate his past life as the Chief Jefessor Eldragon of the strongest clan on the continent. The reason he appears in this newborn form is because over 1,000 years ago, he discovered the absolute peak of martial arts. But then he realized that a human lifetime is never enough to overcome this truth. He clung to an ancient legend that said deep within the sacred sanctuary protected by a dragon god lies a type of golden fruit. This fruit is believed to hold the power of immortality. With this thought in mind, Zachary went to defeat the dragon god and truly witnessed that miraculous fruit. He crawled with his body full of wounds to the front of the tree and quickly picked that fruit down with this. "I can still pursue the absolute peak of martial arts?" Zeke cheerfully said, then immediately devoured it without hesitation. This is Jefessor Eldragon. The man known as the strongest in the world time quickly passed several decades later inside a certain room. The sounds of sorrow echoed continuously, but the important issue is time. He is old now, at least let him rest in peace. Sitting beside the bed is the eldest son of the clan. William, he kept calling his father's name. His expression made Zeke in his aged body also have to remind him not to show that pitiful face. But my time simply has run out. Hearing this, William jokingly said, "This mansion feels so cold without mother," or Zeke gently shook his head. "Don't be weak like that," then in his heart he silently thought. "After all, those legends cannot be trusted. But I am still lucky to have a wife and good children." He reached out to caress his grandson's face and continued, "My beloved children, I, number 3, have lived long enough. Now I have no regrets anymore. Yes, that is what he said on the surface, but inside, Reek is feeling very bitter. Don't be ridiculous like that. Of course I have things to regret. If I could have more time, if only I had more time, I still haven't reached the absolute peak of martial arts." Javier trembled as he raised his aged hands up. The son saw this scene, could not hold back his tears, and thus Javier's life came to an end. At least that's how it was. Who knows how long it has passed? Javier suddenly woke up. Confused, he thought, did I fall asleep? This wallpaper pattern is not from the annex of the building, is it? My body feels unusually light, and these tiny hands, what are they? Jerlisa was astonished when looking at her tiny hands. Aren't these the hands of a newborn? Have I become a baby? Thinking about this, even the strongest man in the world couldn't help but sweat. It took a few seconds for him to calm down a bit and try to reassure himself. Phew, calm down now. To pull someone like me who has reached level 10 into such a bizarre situation and not be detected, this is clearly not normal. Who could have done this and how? I think so. Suddenly, a flash of light appeared in his mind as he recalled that it might be due to that fruit. I understand now. It seems that the effect of that fruit is not immortality, but rather reincarnation, something I did not expect. But this is indeed a stroke of luck. Now I can finally witness the absolute peak of martial arts. Thinking about that is our main character. He couldn't help but smile, then he slightly turned his gaze to observe the scene inside the room where countless cradles contained babies. Given this situation, Joblesser quickly deduced his own circumstances, noticing that there were other newborns sleeping here. I am in a supporting role, which means I have once again reincarnated into the Eldragon family. But why are there so many newborns gathered here? Just as he thought about this, outside, a group of maids entered the room carrying a jug of red liquid along with several empty baby bottles. While they poured this liquid into the bottles, Zeke quickly analyzed that a maid from the Eldragon family was present, but given the situation, it was mealtime. After all, this place is filled with newborns. Unbeknownst to him, a maid spoke up. "Get ready to go." "Yes, ma'am," another replied immediately after. They somehow brought in a goblin and directly stuffed the bottle containing the red liquid into the goblin's mouth. But their actions left the male lead confused. Why is there a goblin here? What are they really planning to do? As if to answer Zeke's question, suddenly the goblin's chest turned bright red like molten steel, and then its chest exploded, causing fresh blood to splatter onto Zeke, who was left dumbfounded. What just happened? Over there, the maid continued, "If we dilute it this much, it should be safe. Yes, hurry and let them drink." "Yes, ma'am." The others replied and quickly went to give the newborns that red liquid to drink. Naturally, I couldn't escape that fate either, and having witnessed the goblin's fate earlier, now Jefferson was also worried he might wet his pants. What are they making us drink? This is not milk. What is this liquid? It contains a tremendous source of power for newborns to drink something so dangerous. This is truly dangerous thinking like that. Just as the nipple was brought to his mouth, Zeke's body automatically opened its mouth and suckled eagerly, which made him feel incredibly annoyed. Damn it, I forgot that I am a newborn now. As the red liquid was swallowed, Jefferson realized what it was. This is the blood of an ancient dragon. What are these fools thinking making us drink this? So the dilution they mentioned was for this purpose. This situation is terrible. I have to spit it out. I have already swallowed some. A small amount like this surely won't kill me, but the other child is instinctively spitting it out. I need to do this before it explodes, but is this really the right thing to do? Zeke wondered to himself, but soon realized this was a golden opportunity. If I absorb all this energy, I could surpass my previous self and reach the absolute peak of martial arts. I don't know why, but I will seize this opportunity. Don't underestimate me. Don't underestimate Professor El Haganazek. He screamed internally while he gritted his teeth, enduring the pain caused by the blood of the ancient dragon. Zeke's eyebrows furrowed tightly as he thought, don't underestimate Professor El Hagon. The maid was startled to see him gripping the milk bottle tightly while Zeke frowned and puffed his cheeks. Using all my strength to suckle, I think I will absorb all the power of the ancient dragon, and then I will have the ability to reach the absolute peak of martial arts that I couldn't attain in my previous life. In his mind, an ancient dragon with two leathery wings kept howling. Its eyes flashed with a golden light as it looked at the figure of another dragon, turning to see that ancient dragon biting tightly onto the neck of that dragon. Doubting what this power was, it was absorbed astonishingly easily. This is perfect. Outside, he lay on the soft cradle, frowning and constantly looking around in thought. Somehow I managed to. Zeke lay inside, feeling the energy from the nearby cradles, pondering that the other children seemed to have survived. Indeed, one should not underestimate the survival instincts of infants. Damn it, it really is a child's body. After a while, he sucked on his finger and fell into a natural sleep, feeling too sleepy as time quickly passed. 7 years later, inside the forest, a voice rang out, counting 998, 999. Zeke, one hand on the ground, was doing push-ups with a rock on his leg. Then he forcefully kicked the rock high into the sky. Next, Zeke quickly jumped to the side to avoid the rock falling straight down from above. The head of the El Dragon clan is now Zeke El. Zeke looked down at his hands, feeling grateful for such an excellent physique. All thanks to the blood of the ancient dragon. In his mind, he thought about this world. Currently, all living beings possess a certain power. Zeke recalled the vial of blood he had drunk earlier. The blood of the ancient dragon that Zeke and the other children were forced to drink contained an endless source of power. He remembered that enormous energy pondering about the children who had consumed it. To some extent, they all gained a physique far superior to ordinary people. Zeke felt that energy reflecting on the power of the divine dragon that he had defeated in his previous life. It resides within me. Zeke, the only child to fully absorb the entire source of the ancient dragon's power, underwent changes that astonished even himself. He closed his eyes, feeling emotional, but he had only achieved the first star. Zeke looked down at his hands and muttered, "Achieving only the first star is really disappointing. I should have at least reached the fourth star by now." The stars are the source of a person's power. When pushed to a certain limit, he felt the energy radiating from within his body. The body is viewed as a universe with countless stars floating inside. The more stars there are, the greater the power achieved, but every time the number of stars increases, creating more stars becomes increasingly difficult. Zeke clenched his fist tightly, contemplating. In his previous life, Joffrey Elgaron had reached 10 stars, an unprecedented record. He was the only one in the world to achieve that power. He ran his hand through his hair, mumbling, but time passes so quickly. It has been 7 years since I was reborn as the illegitimate child of the El Dragon clan. Currently, Zeke thought about her and him, pondering that my mother has passed away and my father has never appeared. I doubt his qualities as a father, but more than that, he scratched his face. Suddenly, a voice inquired 1,000 years later, trying to root the tree, thinking about the scene of the maids feeding the ancient dragon's blood to the children, whispering that even being reincarnated was already surprising enough. But to be reborn 1,000 years later, before I could grasp the timeline, I came back to life in a world where the survival of the fittest was tested to the extreme. The most typical example is this. He thought about the chair of that clan. Forcing newborns to drink the blood of the long is a ritual called the Dragon's Challenge. Zeke thought of those survivors, silently thinking that only the children who survived this challenge could receive the education meant for El Dragon warriors. That was how it should be. He turned his head and saw the maid stepping out to find him. Zeke stared at her and exclaimed, "I'm afraid I can't answer that question." He thought about the past 7 years without any guidance coming to Zeke. Zeke was full of agitation towards the maid, thinking it was quite strange. Those who pass the challenge will be trained in combat, right? But here there are only maids. She heard this and questioned back, "Is there a problem with that?" He was startled and stammered in reply, "No problem." But Zeke raised his thumb, pointing at himself loudly, declaring, "Right now, physical training is important to me. More than learning to fight, I can do that myself." He placed his hands on his hips, looking towards the maid, inquiring, "But at least I want to know a bit about the other children. Or about the main clan, don't you think so?" She coldly replied, "I'm afraid I can't answer that." Reek frowned and asked back, "I was just talking about clan matters. Do you understand?" She closed her eyes and replied, "I'm afraid I can't answer that." Hearing this, his expression immediately darkened as he shouted, "Is this all you can say?" The maid also frowned and coldly replied, "I'm afraid I can't answer that." Zeke, with both hands on his hips, shouted loudly, "Isn't it a bit harsh to treat me like this?" She bowed her head respectfully and replied, "We are only ordered to take care of your daily needs." He stared at her, thinking that this maid was at level 3. Just with basic combat training, one maid might be enough. Immediately after, under her doubtful gaze, Zeke turned and left, saying, "Is that all fine? I will live in the forest together. 7 years with only minimal interactions like this. It's really too unusual." At that moment, he turned his head to look back, inquiring, "Have you finally ignored me?" Then Zeke quickly entered the dense forest alone. One shadow followed. He quickly reached down to uproot a small plant and stuffed all the grass inside. He chewed vigorously, immediately sticking out his tongue, making a moaning sound. The poisonous grass still tasted disgusting, truly terrible, but this could also be considered training. He turned his head, glancing around his mouth, continuously urging, "Be patient, be patient." Reek glanced at the bushes behind him, whispering, "But someone has been watching me closely lately. I really wish I could do something." He exhaled, looking ahead, and shouted, "Wow! I didn't expect they would reveal themselves for such a trivial matter. Really, if you have something to say, come out and say it directly." Zeke pouted and quickly walked towards that direction. He reached out to part the bushes to check inside. A flash of purple light flickered in the air as he hid behind the thick bushes, whispering that there was something over there. Reek saw a wild boar completely covered in black bones, pondering that it was a frenzied wild boar. He frowned, staring over there, wondering about the black bones that had not existed for 1,000 years. What could that possibly be? Suddenly, the wild boar turned its head, staring intently at Zeke, its entire body covered in black bones, then quickly charged towards him. Seeing this, Zeke was filled with excitement, a bright smile on his face as he looked at the wild creature. Immediately, he leaned to the side to dodge it, his eyes shining as he clenched his fist, gathering a warm yellow light. He struck powerfully with a punch. This sent the wild boar flying backward a considerable distance. Zeke lowered his head, looking at the light flashing on his hand, exclaiming that he had only lightly touched something of the same level as the first star. Yet it generated so much power. He immediately carried the wild boar's corpse away. The quality of the stars is truly important. I'm starting to feel bored being left like this. Should I set off on an adventure? Zeke left the forest behind, quickly moving away if he wanted to go somewhere. The sea was the first destination. Behind a tree trunk, a man tightly gripped a staff in his hand, silently wondering what was happening here. Although he was not properly trained, he had used the power of the first star to defeat a frenzied wild boar with just one blow. More importantly, he had also sensed his hidden presence. That child is not ordinary. He thought of Zeke, pondering how his mother had passed away early and his father did not care. How could a child like Zeke receive proper guidance? However, because the bloodline of the clan flowed in his veins, he was not allowed to escape from the clan and was always monitored. The man sat cross-legged on the ground, mumbling. Even if he was born out of wedlock, he still belonged to the clan's bloodline. This could be quite interesting later on. Immediately after, his figure vanished without a trace, leaving no sign behind. At the house where Reek had grown up, he tightened the straps of his backpack on his shoulders, inquiring who they were. 3 of them were at the 4th star level, and 1 was at the 5th star level, all seasoned warriors. What could people like them want here? Reek stood outside the door, pressing his ear against the wooden panel, listening to the sounds of discussion inside. The air in this countryside was so fresh. The team leader was right. There were no gaps nearby. So perhaps there was little chaos. They seemed to have no ill intentions. At least it didn't seem like an assassination in this case. He pushed the door open with force and asked, "What are you doing in a place like this?" Zeke looked at the badges on the 2 of them, wondering if something had happened to the Elegon family crest. Shortly after, the man quickly stepped forward, removing his hat, placing his hand on his chest, bowing respectfully, and replied, "This must be our first meeting. We have come to escort you, Reek. You must participate in a test." Zeke was startled upon hearing this, puzzled about a test. He then widened his eyes in disbelief. An exclamation of surprise escaped him inside that small wooden house. Zeke's incredulous voice echoed everywhere. "Even though I haven't been taught anything yet." Zeke crossed his arms, staring up in astonishment. "I can't believe I'm going back to the main estate." At that moment, he was standing in front of the grand and luxurious estate. Then he was brought back to the main clan by the messengers sent from the main house. The servants quickly spoke up to remind him. "Zeke, you need to change your clothes. You can't enter the estate looking like this." At that time, he was taken aback. "I can't enter, but isn't this where I live?" Speaking of which, that object called the Dragon Tomb seemed to have been around for the past 1,000 years. The Elrond clan has established a specialized educational academy. Zeke recalls what he had known before. Those born into the Li Gold clan all have the goal of joining the Dragon Tomb and are educated at home until the age of 7. Today is the entrance exam, and he smiles confidently, thinking to himself, "I will pass. I am someone who has not been properly educated at all. My legs are trembling as I stand straight observing my surroundings." Suddenly, he squats down, holding his head in frustration. Nevertheless, participation in the exam is mandatory, so I have been brought from the border region to here. Zeke cannot help but remember himself back then. Why does this happen just when I plan to leave? After all the preparations, there is nothing left. Just as he is squatting on the ground, suddenly a voice comes from behind him. A boy with light blue hair looks gentle. He bows his head and asks Xander from Oscar Village, "Are you okay? Is something wrong?" Seeing this, Zeke looks up confused and asks, "Who are you?" The boy, hearing this, awkwardly explains, "I am Xander. You don't look well, so..." Zeke's expression shows he is not very concerned. Staring at Janja, he feels the boy radiating a source of energy. He silently evaluates in his heart, "This kid looks timid but quite sharp." So Reek suddenly stands up and says, "Sorry about that." He smiles warmly and introduces himself. "You are Zanessa, right? I am Zeke." Then Zeke sighs, exclaiming, "I really don't understand what they intend to make us do." Zanessa, hearing this, looks confused and hugs her arm, saying, "The content of the exam hasn't changed in years, yet you casually say, 'Oh, I don't even know what the exam consists of.'" With no background hearing this, he turns pale in shock. What Janessa not knowing anything about the exam is too reckless. Is he okay? So he begins to explain to Zeke, today's test includes..." Suddenly from afar, a shout rings out, "Hey, Janja, the weakest one!" Hearing this, Janja is startled and turns around with a frightened expression. At this moment, another boy approaches with a mocking face. This one is Zed from Oscar Ken Village. He speaks disdainfully. "How come a weakling like you is here? Lost, go home before you get hurt." Janja, confused, replies, "Of course for the test at the Dragon Tomb." Hearing this, he shows contempt and exclaims, "You!" Jackson laughs mockingly at his face, clutching his stomach. "No way. No way you can get in. Your father is Wei Long, right? The child of Wei Long can't do anything." At this moment, Janessa's hand clenches in anger, trembling. Zeke has also noticed this. Speaking of the lineage of the Li Gun clan, there is a clear hierarchy established by an absolute monarch Wei Long, followed by the military leader Yao Long, and then the captain Long. The highest leader is Long, and at the very bottom is Wei Long. Those who cannot participate in the Dragon Tomb or graduate are referred to as the inexperienced ones. He glares with anger inside, but I want to prove that we are not fakes. Just then, a voice rings out, startling him. "Why can you assert that without trying?" Zeke quickly steps forward to the three boys. Zed, seeing this disdainfully and angrily, says, "Who the hell are you? Is there a problem?" He appears gentle and replies, "I'm just asking." "Why can't Janessa?" He pointed directly at Janjessar and said, "Of course it's because he's weak." His expression was slightly startled upon hearing this. Zeke stared at Janji and assessed that he was indeed stronger than many others. Hearing these words, he couldn't help but be taken aback, wide-eyed. They saw this and immediately got angry, scolding. "What are you saying? Are you saying we're weaker than that loser?" At that moment, unexpectedly, two men appeared, calling out loudly to gather everyone. This was the dragon instructor, who sternly announced that the entrance exam for the Dragon Cave would begin right now. The candidates need to register in order and quickly move along with their number cards. Jack, upon arriving, stopped arguing with Jackie and went over to remind him. "I remember your face, you bastard." He sighed in frustration, thinking he didn't need to be that angry. Kids these days get angry so easily. From behind, Jianji spoke up, confused. We're the same age, right? So he slightly bowed his head and continued. Who wouldn't get mad when hearing that I'm stronger than them? Zeke looked at Jansen and softly replied, really. Then he crossed his arms and said the obvious, but this entrance exam is mandatory, isn't it? So saying things like it's impossible or something like that. And Zanzer, a bit confused, asked, can you really withdraw? You really don't know anything, do you? Zeke replied, you can give up, I don't know either. He awkwardly smiled and continued, you'd better withdraw, at least that way you won't get hurt. He didn't explain further but smiled and stroked his chin. A person of my level can't even withdraw despite trying. Zhang Jia sighed, you're really confident? Even if you don't know what the test content is. After hearing this, Zeke laughed cheerfully. Well, let's hurry up. We need to be quick or the test will start. He scratched his head and replied, oh, right. That's right. Then they practiced focusing on the instructor. He said the test was very simple if you can scratch this stone. You will pass. You are not allowed to use weapons other than what we have prepared, but using your bare hands is allowed. You just need to make a scratch appear on the stone. The instructor, now with 3 fingers, smiled and added, however, you only have 3 attempts. Hearing this, Reek couldn't help but exclaim, that's really simple. Zhang Jia was slightly startled upon hearing this. He thought to himself, all I need to do is make a scratch on that stone right. After going through the crazy ritual like the Dragon Challenge, I thought the test would be terrifying waiting for me. What a letdown. Right after that, the instructor over there coldly shouted, start! A classmate quickly struck the stone with all his might. Zhang Jia on the other side couldn't help but panic and held his head, followed by another loud impact. However, unexpectedly, something shot out and his hand started bleeding. The group of Reek over here was shocked and frightened, and the kid yelled out. Then he lay sprawled on the ground. The instructor came over, noted something, and asked, first attempt failed. Do you want to try again? Seeing that he didn't move, the person next to him smiled, considering him to have given up, and began to clean up. After that, they dragged the kid away right in front of the crowd around. Next, stepping forward, Zanessa, who was still holding his head in fear. Zeke saw this and felt angry. So this was the test. He couldn't help but mumble, what is that stone? Next, stepping forward, Zanessa was still holding her head in fear. Zeke, seeing this, felt angry. It turned out this was a test. He couldn't help but mumble, what is that rock over there? And Zanza immediately began to explain to Zeke that this is called a regeneration stone, which will instantly recreate even the smallest scratches when attacked with pure power like that. It will redistribute the attack with hundreds of times more power. After hearing this, he couldn't help but think that it was an incredibly unreasonable material. He added, but if you circulate the source of power throughout your body correctly and attack, it will get scratched. Zeke understood and felt a bit confused while calculating. I understand from what I have heard. The martial arts skills learned are less important than learning to control the source of power. His gaze glanced around and everyone present was tense. Looking down below, it seemed that quite a few people could pass the test, even those guys from this morning. On the other side, a heartbreaking scream rang out. That kid was so scared he was in tears. Number 51 was the next to fall, followed by another teenager who also failed. Number 202 fell next. The tags fell down and the emotionless instructor continued to write on the paper. Then he continued. Next is number 315. He looked up at his tag and spoke up. It's my turn now. Seeing this, Zanessa worriedly told Zeke that there was still a chance to give up. Zeke waved at him and stepped down below, saying not to worry. Zanessa looked down, feeling tense and unsure of what to say. Over there, the instructor pointed to him, his hand still holding the pen, preparing to take notes. At that moment, the instructor's eyes showed surprise from behind Zeke. Emitting a powerful source of energy, he smiled slightly. The weapon was on the shelf, and he saw Reek walk in empty-handed. The instructor was puzzled, not using a weapon. He confirmed, yes, it's not necessary. This fist is enough. In the stands, the students were buzzing. That guy plans to use only his bare hands. Even if he is good at controlling the source of power, he still can't match that rock's toughness with bare hands. His fist would be crushed. Jiang was pale when he heard someone say, no, don't forget about the fist. He might even lose his arm. He silently blamed himself. Just as he predicted, he should have stopped him more forcefully. He also didn't hesitate. I understand, so let's start. When touching the rock, Reek silently assessed that this was indeed the first time he had seen such a mineral. This must be a product formed after thousands of years. There are too many things I still don't understand. So he reassured himself no problem and immediately swung his fist up. Zhang panicked, jumped up, thinking this isn't good. I have to stop him, so he shouted loudly, Zeke, Meanwhile, Zeke was very excited about this. He could unleash all of his power right now, while Yan Yan stared blankly as he still had no intention of stopping. The technique that JK was using at this moment was Dragon Destruction Martial Technique. The first move burst. In an instant, the rock exploded, debris flying out with such force that even those in the stands quite far away were terrified. The instructor stood frozen because this exceeded his imagination. He smirked arrogantly, just as he had predicted, thus Reek was pleased. This technique is still a bit beyond the capabilities of my current body. I still need to practice more. The stands fell silent. No one had recovered from the recent event. After a moment, Z spoke up angrily. It shattered the rock. Meanwhile, Leica also praised how interesting while Jiang was still in shock, unable to believe what had just happened, then gasped and shouted what meanwhile he silently assessed. No way the kid punched away half of the regeneration stone. This can only happen with someone at level 4 stars. Or higher than that, how could a child do that? In the heart of the instructor, he doubted, although he is an illegitimate child, does he really belong to the main bloodline? But the technique just now, it seems we have seen it somewhere before. Seeing him in a daze, the brother asked, "Excuse me, Judge, may I ask how my test results are?" The dragon teacher immediately announced, "Number 315 passes, bring the gift here, you take it." Reek curiously asked, "What is this?" At the same time, the teacher whispered, "Can you hurry up? I still have to clean up the scene." He stomped his foot in frustration. Is everyone in this era like this? Everyone is really in a hurry. Take it easy. Look at you running over with admiring eyes, Reek. That's amazing you broke it. Reek happily recalled the gift and asked, "Oh, right." Zanzer touched it and asked, "What is this?" Zanzer touched it and was stunned. "You got a recovery potion." Zeke was even more confused. "A recovery potion." He happily replied, "It's a common type." He picked it up to examine it. It didn't seem like poison. Don't tell me this is a miracle medicine. In fact, it is the cloud-crossing Cleara potion made from extremely rare materials. To be more specific, the ingredients are various herbs that only grow in secret realms and cores filled with pure energy from divine beasts and mythical creatures, which are very difficult to defeat. The specific effect is, when used, not only wounds but also old scars will be healed instantly, and it shows great effectiveness in enhancing one's strength. However, due to the extreme difficulty in gathering materials and the extremely challenging refining process, it is very rarely seen. Zeke decided to try a sip of Cloud Crossing Clear. Let's see if there's anything new. Surprisingly, the wound on his arm healed in the blink of an eye. He was very surprised. Is this really a miracle medicine? Zanzer touched it and explained, "I don't know about miracle medicines, but the recovery potions prepared by the Eldragon family are definitely better than the ones sold normally." He hesitated to ask, "Are you really surprised, Zeke?" "Of course I'm surprised," he replied honestly. To have serious wounds healed instantly like this, however, he was a bit disappointed as it seemed it didn't enhance his strength like a miracle medicine. Zanzer touched it and expressed, "Zeke is even more amazing." Zeke thought to himself, "What are you saying?" At the same time, he realized something. This is truly. The wisdom of humanity has been accumulated over more than 1,000 years while he praised, "You are really amazing, Zeke, extremely strong." Zeke calmly said, "Then I am aiming to become the strongest." Janjiro admired him even more, saying those things so calmly. Under the arena, the sword duel was still ongoing. Number 373, number 395, number 405, listening to the results, he sighed inwardly that their passing was within expectations. Next, number 414. Although very scared, he was still determined. "When it's my turn, I will—" Zeke shouted loudly to cheer. "Why are you so worried?" "It's okay, just stay calm. Don't set your standards too high." But when he saw Janjiro preparing, he sighed. "What is that guy doing?" He took a deep breath. The teacher signaled to begin. Immediately, Janjiro closed his eyes and swung the sword. He coldly reminded, "The first attempt failed. There are 2 more tries. I will try again. This time it will definitely work." Zanessa continued to lift the sword and struck hard at the stone. The result of the second attempt was still a miserable failure. He trembled and exclaimed, "No way." Zanessa continued to raise her sword and struck hard at the stone slab, but for the second time it was a complete failure. She trembled and exclaimed, "It can't be." Friends burst into laughter. Just as predicted, the child of Ngai Long is still just Ngai Long. Give it up. Taking this opportunity, he reminded them of what was said earlier. "What did you say, Zed? Didn't you loudly mock that the guy Janji's was lying there? Stronger than us, huh? The words are getting harder to hear. Stop rambling." It's really ridiculous that the dragon instructor is asking for opinions again. Do you want to try again? Janjis trembled like a leaf. I don't know when Zeke has come beside him. What are you doing? Zeke asked in confusion, why not use a spear? Why are you taking a sword? Don't you understand the instructor's meaning? Zeke calmly explained as I said, why use an inappropriate weapon without any plan? In the stands, he added fuel to the fire with your current condition, no matter how hard you try. You can't even make a scratch on that rock. With a sword, the other students joined in, laughing. Are you stupid? His father didn't use a spear, but taught him swordsmanship. A group of other students whispered to each other, that's right, changing weapons won't help at all. Ignoring those words, he politely asked the examiner if changing weapons during the test was against the rules. He calmly replied, no problem. Zeke cheerfully pointed out for Zanzer to hear he said that. Zanzer, you're lucky. So are you provoking to boost your determination? Will you leave it like that? Images from the past suddenly flashed through his mind. Jiang Jia slowly stood up. I will. And you decide to try using a spear, recalling the past. My father couldn't enter the dragon tomb. However, he was gentle and caring. He treated Yanjesser very well. Regardless of whether you were sad or happy, he always had the habit of patting your head. He was called Ngai Long and was mocked even so. My father didn't care about that. He raised me. He taught Janessa from the smallest things in life, taught you how to hold a sword and use it. Returning to the present in the middle of this square, Janessa silently vowed to herself, the person my father raised is not fake today. Here I will prove that, even though the determination is there. But in Janessa's heart at this moment there were many thoughts. He looked down at the spear in his hand, nervously thinking to himself, if I try again with the sword, the result will be the same. So I will trust Zeke, but how can I use the spear? Right now Zeke is beside him. He called out Xander after touching it. He pointed to the resurrection stone. Then encouraging Jiang Jia, just stab straight and don't think about anything, just stab straight. Ri-Ke encouraged Jiang Jia, which somewhat eased his worries, but he was still a bit anxious. Jiang Jia tightened his grip on the spear, muttering to himself to motivate himself to stab straight ahead. His mind involuntarily recalled the past, usually being mocked by the Z group, remembering that Ri-Ke was always by his side. Yan thought to himself normally, if I think I just need to stab straight with a spear that I've never held before. It won't be possible to make the resurrection stone work, but how can he say that without trying even once? Even though I've only just met him, this is quite strange to think about. He finally made up his mind, holding the spear straight, aiming at the resurrection stone, and boldly declared that he understood. I will try. And he kept reminding himself that since Zeke believed in him, he would also try to believe in himself. Then he rushed towards the resurrection stone. The spear in his hand glimmered softly, and Yan could feel the power that the spear brought. He was both happy and worried. Holding the sword from the beginning, the flow within him had never surged like this before. Without thinking much, Zara shouted and used all his strength. He thrust forcefully into the resurrection stone while Zed's group was unaware of what was happening. They burst into loud laughter, mocking him. I told you so. Just changing the weapon. It won't help him do anything. Slow down as Zanji thrusts into the resurrection stone. When the spear tip accelerates about to touch the stone, he couldn't believe it. It felt like it had been a part of his body from the very beginning. The sharp spear pierced at the speed of light. As the spear penetrated the resurrection stone, dust flew everywhere, and Zed's group was astonished, unable to believe their eyes, shouting something. The assistant teacher beside the dragon instructor was also surprised, exclaiming, "Oh my!" The dragon instructor, although his face remained unchanged, still remarked that he not only made it work, but also pierced through it, concluding Janjess's test. Zeke immediately stood up, clapping to congratulate him. Wonderful, you did great. Zanzie was still dazed, asking what just happened. The dragon instructor wrote down the results and announced that number 414 passed. Zanzie stood there, still holding the spear in disbelief, stammering, I passed. Zeke put his arm around him, smiling, and repeated, That's right, you did it. Just as I thought, after regaining his composure, Jiang Za's eyes welled up with tears of joy, murmuring, I passed. Then he joyfully hugged Zeke, shouting, I did it. I really passed. Zeke chuckled, saying, I told you so. In the stands, the two next to Zed were clamoring to refute and deny Zed's talent, claiming it was just a coincidence, right? At this moment, the dragon instructor announced loudly that the entrance exam had concluded, and he looked at the list of students who passed, then continued to announce that the enrollment ceremony would begin right now. Hearing this, Zeke asked Janessa beside him, Is that all for the enrollment ceremony? Janessa immediately replied, Yes, there might be other tests after we start school. Zeke asked again, So what do we do now? This question left Zanzer unsure of how to respond. He could only vaguely reply, there probably isn't anything for us to do. Just then, a steady sound of footsteps approached as a dignified group slowly walked out into the square. Upon hearing this, the dragon instructor spoke up, saying that the leader of the Eldragon clan would give a congratulatory speech for you all, directing attention to a man with a commanding presence. Silently among the crowd, Zeke curiously asked Zanzer, "Who is that gloomy man?" Zanzer turned pale at being called that guy, but honestly replied, "That's the clan leader." Zeke, without any hesitation, bluntly commented on him. "That clan leader with that face, can't he brighten up a bit? The ice might even be warmer than him." Hearing his words, Jiangza was terrified and quickly covered his mouth, half pleading, half requesting, "Please be quiet." Saying that, he slowly withdrew his hand from Reek's mouth, but was still sweating profusely, repeatedly asking him to please remain silent. Reek nodded but said nothing more. His gaze turned towards the leaders of the Eldragon clan, silently pondering that this was indeed the current strength of the Eldragon clan. A few level 7 elites and a considerable number of level 6 elites were truly a formidable force to think about. He couldn't help but sigh internally after hearing this. Zeke looked at the thoughtful chief of the clan and the current chief of the Elphagone clan. Currently, Banjo Elphagone was observing the mysterious aura emanating from him. Zeke silently assessed and thought he must be level 8 based on his knowledge. This level is extremely rare. He was level 8 1,000 years ago, with even fewer than 12 people in the world possessing it. I'm unsure what this era is like. But thinking about this, he no longer kept his thoughts to himself and directly said out loud, "I don't like him." Upon hearing this, Jian immediately turned to stare at him. Zeke resumed controlling his thoughts, believing that was the father of the other leaders of the Eldragon clan, who parted to the sides to allow Banzer to walk to the center position. The dragon instructor loudly signaled everyone with a few words from Mr. Banzer. As he focused, Banjo walked straight to the center position and spoke. His voice was devoid of warmth, succinctly stating, "Strive to become the flesh and blood of Eldragon." His words emitted a strange magical force, blowing away Zeke. Everyone sitting in the stands could not escape the fate of being blown away. The noisy voices began to rise, discussing how impossible it was. Zeke was unaffected, but he looked over at Xander, who was gasping for breath, his face turning purple. He worriedly called out to Xander, glancing at the others around who were also struggling to breathe. He vaguely realized that even the other kids were being pressured by this guy. Thinking of this, he frowned and thought to himself, what a terrible hatred. "I don't know what happened, but I really don't like him." When Banjo turned to leave, the atmosphere in the square gradually returned to normal. Suddenly, applause rang out. Yes, another man, also a leader in the Eldragon clan, laughed heartily and continued Banzer's speech. "Indeed, those are valuable, encouraging words. Mr. Banzer has high expectations for you all." Zeke paid attention to him, silently wondering who he was, while the man's booming voice continued to resonate, so he didn't need to say much in greeting. "Strive hard." The young people finished speaking, and he laughed once again. Zeke was still curious about who he was. Stepping down, the man casually chatted with the dragon instructor, who teased him, saying, "Really? That's exactly right." The man playfully joked back, saying those who worry about trivial matters will be questioned. Not caring about his identity anymore, Zeke could only sigh internally. "I don't understand what's going on, but fortunately the atmosphere has changed after the recent pressure." The students in the stands were silent. No one spoke a word, nor did anyone dare to breathe loudly, while Zeke didn't care about these trivial matters. Sitting still, looking down at the square, the dragon instructor held a list in his hand and loudly announced, "Now we will announce the dormitory allocations. Those whose names are called should move immediately." Hearing this, Zeke wondered and asked Janji, "Aren't we all going to the same place?" Janessa explained, based on her knowledge, "Actually, there are 4 dragon chambers. The students enrolling will be allocated to the corresponding halls in the east, west, south, and north directions." After hearing this, Zeke nodded and replied, "Got it." At that time, the dragon instructor read out number 315, and Zeke stood up smiling and saying goodbye to Jan Jess. "It's my turn now." At that moment, the dragon instructor read number 315. Zeke stood up and smiled, saying goodbye to Jan Jess as he approached me. "Jan Jess, take care, okay, Jan Jess? Sincerely wishes you well. You too, Zeke, at the Eastern Tomb among the grand classic houses with spacious shady gardens right now." Zeke is holding a note in his hand, scratching his head, sighing after 1,000 years. So much has changed, huh? It's easy to get lost here after struggling to find the way. He has finally found his dorm room, and he happily exclaims, "Here it is, oh no, I got lost and am late. My roommate must be here by now." Saying that, Zeke twists the doorknob and opens the door. He cheerfully waves to the person inside and says, "Sorry to keep you waiting. Starting today, we are roommates." Vaguely looking at the person in front of him, he hesitates and asks, "Are you Rika?" He smiles and exclaims, "Looks like we have quite a connection, huh?" The boy with green hair also smiles back. "That's right, I was worried I would be alone. This is great." After that, he plops down on the bed and asks, "Is there nothing else to do today?" Zan steps over to Reek and replies, "That's right, the training session will start tomorrow." He then pouts and mutters, "That's right." Seeing this reaction, Zeke can't help but ask, "Are you even listening? The instructor just said that?" Zeke smiles brightly and gives a thumbs up. "I didn't hear anything." Janessa immediately shouts, "That's not something to brag about." Then she adopts a serious tone and says, "Anyway, we should sleep early. Tomorrow is the start of training." Under the gentle sunset light streaming through the window, Zeke sits in silence, lost in thought. He suddenly remembers the things he has experienced and quietly contemplates his intention to escape from this dull house. This mundane place and go on an adventure, but that resurrection stone and that potion. There are too many interesting things happening at the entrance exam. Zeke unconsciously looks out the window, silently wishing to understand what has changed after 1,000 years. Staying with the Elven tribe for a while longer isn't bad. Time flies quickly. A month later, at the fortress of the El-High Gold tribe on the training ground, there is a group of kids trembling as they lift weights with both hands while someone is loudly shouting. Listen up, long breath is the amazing breathing technique created by the 15th generation chief of the Regan family. The dragon instructor stands solemnly speaking loudly. You all must master this technique in every situation. As he finishes speaking, he turns to look at something with a contemplative expression. Leica in front of him currently has her eyes closed. Using the technique very well makes him ponder. Many have mastered long breath already, especially when the young lady's energy is showing signs of overflowing, indicating she is about to reach level 2. The dragon instructor then looks with suspicion at another direction, where the boy Reek is sitting, easily lifting weights, while also carrying 3 large stones. What is this? The result is that he also has the blood of the chief flowing in him, but he lacks guidance or formal training. What? The dragon instructor stands behind him, silently observing, still astonished. What a sight this is. Meanwhile, Zeke is calmly inhaling and exhaling, thinking to himself, I never expected the Long King breath technique I created would be improved and widely spread under the name Long Breath. He sits cross-legged, looking a bit bored, while his body is surrounded by a golden aura. The breathing technique is a skill to absorb energy from the air into the body and operate it to self-upgrade one's strength. The effectiveness depends on the skill and dexterity of the user. Therefore, prestigious families all create their own methods, and the perfected techniques are kept secret like the utmost secrets. Zeke closes his eyes and thinks to himself, long breath is quite safe and easy to learn. But if the purpose is just for meditation, then I don't need the mature figure of my previous life to suddenly appear. The secret technique of the Long King breath passed down by J. Fisher Logon. If the purpose is just for calming the mind, then I don't need the mature back of you from your past life suddenly appearing with the Dragon King's secret technique passed down by J. Fisher. That is the only breathing technique that allows control over the energy source without interrupting the breath even while moving. Its effectiveness is immense, but very few can inherit it due to its high difficulty. In Zeke's mind, a process of inheriting this breathing technique suddenly sketched itself, and he immediately speculated. So they intentionally simplified it so that anyone could use it, and from there the collective strength of the entire clan was unexpectedly elevated. Our technique was passed down to future generations. The shape changes like that. Isn't it touching? I wonder if other martial arts will change like this after thousands of years. It's really something to look forward to. In a corner that Zeke couldn't see, Leica was quietly observing him not long after. The children who had just finished training began their meal at home. Eating in a lively atmosphere, suddenly 2 kids with horrified expressions were intently watching the arm reaching out for a plate of food. Zeke cheerfully opened his mouth wide, preparing to take a bite. Just as he got the food to the edge of his mouth, it was covered in crumbs. Zeke chewed while curiously asking, "What's wrong? You look deep in thought. If you don't eat, you won't get stronger." Knowing the space was limited, the boy helplessly asked back, "Why are you so full of energy? Your physical strength is quite strange. He casually mocked, "It's because you're too weak." Zeke smiled awkwardly, pushing the plate of pancakes in front of him. "Eat more and train hard. There's no other way for you." A blue-haired boy dejectedly exclaimed, "I have my share now!" In the next moment, he suddenly glanced back. After all, there were a few kids who were well-trained at the same time. Leica suddenly approached him and spoke. "You're quite good at this." "Right, who is that?" he thought to himself. Zeke instinctively spoke up. "Who is it, Jan?" Jan, hearing that, immediately spat out the sip of water he had just taken. He quickly pulled Zeke aside and whispered, "Zeke, don't you know? This is Miss Leica, the daughter of the clan leader." Zeke replied indifferently, "I don't know." Zansar was shocked and shouted, "No way! She is one of the candidates for the position of clan leader successor. Normally we don't have the right to talk to her." He was pressed close to her face and blurted out, "If that's the case, then she's also the daughter of the clan leader, even if she's an illegitimate child." Zansar was momentarily stunned while Leica across from him unexpectedly asked with a calm expression, "Are you the illegitimate child of the clan leader?" "The successor clan leader, Leica Tifona Eldragon." Zeke propped his hands and immediately replied, "Why would I lie about such things?" Leica, hearing this, questioned, "Then why are you strong enough to crush stone? Born with bare hands, right?" She said this while slamming her hand on the table. "An illegitimate child without support can't possibly do that." He turned back to continue cutting meat and then calmly replied, "Ah, that's just me." She spoke while slamming her hand on the table, saying, "How can a child born out of wedlock achieve that without support?" He then turned back to continue cutting meat before calmly replying, "Oh, that's just me. Don't just stand there, eat up." Zeke's response made Leica silent for a moment, but then she suddenly smiled and said he was really interesting. Leica comfortably sat down next to him and asked, "So how about it? Be my subordinate." Zeke looked at her with a dead fish gaze, asking, "What did you just say?" Leica repeated the invitation while presenting the benefits. "Now I'm asking if you want to be under my command. I will be your support. A child born out of wedlock surely wants an ally." "Right." In her mind, she envisioned the two of them standing side by side in the future, raising their glasses, one hand resting on the table, smiling as they painted a picture of the future. "Then use your strength to help me become the clan leader. Of course I will treat you well after I become the leader. How about that?" Zeke immediately closed his eyes and refused, "No thanks." Leica suddenly lowered her voice, causing him to look over, wondering what was wrong. "Don't tell me she's cold and exuding a strong aura. Do you also intend to compete for the position of clan leader?" Zeke sensed that aura, but only thought she was at the second level. "Can she emit spiritual energy outside her body at such a young age?" Interesting, but he replied indifferently, "Do whatever you want. I'm not interested in becoming a clan leader or anything related to clan matters." Leica couldn't help but be surprised, slamming the table and standing up. "What is this? What else is there?" Before she could finish her words, something suddenly flashed before her eyes. Zeke's face darkened as he forcefully stabbed the knife in his hand into the table just a few centimeters away from Leica's fingers. Zeke widened his eyes, gleaming with a golden hue, and said, "I do not serve anyone because I am the strongest." Under that gaze, Leica's whole body suddenly stiffened as if she had been electrocuted. Her face turned pale as she thought to herself, "Am I being threatened?" At that moment, Zanza, trembling, stood up to intervene. "Calm down, it's okay," but Leica suddenly shouted in an angry tone. "Then I will force you to submit and fight me." Zeke chewed while looking confused, while Zanza beside him was so scared she froze for a moment. A boy who was walking suddenly turned his head and asked, "Where are you guys going?" "To the training ground. There's a match between the newcomers and Lady Leica." The boy exclaimed in astonishment, "Lady Leica from the Tifona clan, with whom? Why is that?" "Who knows?" At the training ground, other newcomers who came to watch the match hid behind the wall, whispering to each other, "This is a duel. Who is that guy?" At this moment, Zeke was also rubbing his head, mumbling, "This is tense." Zanza, worried, asked, "Are you okay?" "The opponent is Lady Leica," he said nonchalantly. "Even if you say that I don't know who she is." "Why did you suddenly change to a formal tone?" The green-haired boy's eyes widened as he shouted, "Of course you are the son of the clan leader." Zeke just smiled lightly and replied, "Oh, do whatever you want. It's more important." Zanza clung to his hand and exclaimed, "Please think carefully. Leica is the daughter of the current clan leader, Banzer, and also carries the bloodline of the Tifona clan, one of the 4 major clans supporting the Eldragon house. She is a genius who mastered all variations of the Great Thunder Sword technique, a legacy of the Tefona clan since she was 7 years old, just like the other extremely talented children of Lord Banzer. As soon as he finished speaking, Zeke, confused, raised his hand and expressed, "Sorry, I only understand that she is the daughter of the clan leader." Zanzer was startled and shouted why he explained that everything was new to him. The blue-haired boy, disheartened, held his head and asked, "Why don't ask?" And then Reek suddenly spoke up to comfort him. But not knowing makes it even more interesting, right? He grinned and laughed, exclaiming how extremely interesting it was. Even though he saw Zeke's reaction like that, Zanessa still worried, even though Lord Zeke was strong, facing Miss Leica was still too disadvantageous. "Why did you accept the challenge?" He rubbed his chin and replied, "Well, when someone challenges me, I won't back down." As soon as he finished speaking, Zeke turned his head to look in the opposite direction. She seemed to be present already. Leica planted her sword into the ground, her face angry and full of vigor, announcing that the casual conversation ended here. Leica slammed her sword into the ground and shouted, questioning if the chatter was over. Zanessa trembled in fear while Zeke smiled beside her and replied, "Everything is ready, it's all done." Jiang was panicking, shouting as he moved away, "Please, just be careful, Zeke, stay calm." I asked Leica, "Right. Careful, that depends on you. Why are you so determined to challenge me?" She confidently replied, "I want to become the clan leader to do that. I have to make you submit and join me." Zeke, feeling bored, wondered what she meant. He thought to himself, what does this have to do with me? Leica frowned and said, "Wait, you don't know anything about the current situation of your clan. Is it because you are an illegitimate child?" He hesitated and replied, "Well, I might know something. If you ask directly," Leica immediately explained, "Listen clearly, including you and me, there are a total of 5 candidates for the next clan leader position, everyone except you. Have all allied with one of the 4 branches of the Eldragon clan. Think about the strength and background of each person and then continue with which branch will be the origin clan. The next clan leader is very important, so we all have to be present at the Long Tomb to represent our clan branches and compete with each other. I need more strength." To confront my brothers, Reek frowned, thinking that. "There is currently a confrontation between the 4 clan branches, huh? It's complicated, I'm not sure I understand." Then he said he understood. Then Leica, while drawing her sword, said, "Therefore, as a candidate for the next clan leader position, I need to consolidate my resources more," she declared. "That's the reason." Leica jumped. Reek alertly raised his head. Leica lifted her sword and leaped towards him. She shouted, "Right here, I will defeat you." Leica swung down, but Zeke nimbly dodged to the side. He tilted his head to evade Leica's slash, and she angrily yelled, "I won't let you escape." A stunned student exclaimed too fast, a friend standing beside commented. When she used that giant sword, it was so easy. Leica continued to chase Zeke, and the observing students were buzzing about her ability to control her power so accurately. And she was also attacking faster. It turned out this was the power of an heir from a clan, the strength of the children from the main clan. It's just a matter of time before this match reaches a decisive moment. Leica gritted her teeth, wondering why she swung her sword, but Reek was able to dodge. Then he quickly stood behind her, teasingly smiling, and said, "I can't land a single blow," while Leica widened her eyes in amazement at the incredible scene on the battlefield. Zeke looked at her and muttered, evaluating this martial skill, "I have never seen anything like this, especially at this speed. It's not something you would expect from someone at the 1st star level." Leica angrily shouted, "Shut up and focus on the match." Zeke clenched his fist and replied, "I'm focused, that's why," causing Leica to freeze, staring at him in confusion as he had just punched her straight in the stomach. He coldly said, "I can counterattack like this." Leica, in pain, coughed and leaned her sword against the ground, holding her stomach, as the students outside murmured in disbelief, "No way." Every attack from Miss Leica missed. "Who is that guy?" Leica raised her head, gritting her teeth, and questioned, "Why can't my attacks hit you? For someone at your 1st star level, I should be much faster." "I should be way faster than you." Zeke smiled and replied, "You are indeed much faster than any 1st star I have encountered." He glanced and added, "But you are still at the 1st star level." Leica angrily questioned, "Aren't you also at the 1st star level? You shouldn't be able to keep up with my movements." Zeke chuckled lightly. "It's simple." He observed her body and then said, "Breath control and muscle movement," Reek explained, "just by observing those things. You can read most movements. The rest comes from experience." At that moment, Leica forced herself to stand up, swung her sword at him, and shouted loudly, "How ridiculous!" He leaned back to dodge Leica's attack and said, "I told you," as he placed his hands on the ground, using his legs to kick Leica, who gritted her teeth in anger. Zeke tightened his fist, aiming at her, and said, "I can read you." Leica was punched by Zeke, sending her crashing against the wall. Zeke frowned in silence as a student shouted, "Miss Leica!" The people around were astonished, murmuring, "No way." Did she really lose? Miss Leica has lost? Janji rushed over, exclaiming, "Sir Zeke is amazing! He has defeated Miss Leica!" Zeke coldly retorted, "Not yet." As the dust began to settle, Leica stomped her feet. Zeke smiled and remarked, "She has concentrated all her strength into her core to withstand my attack. That's not trivial." Leica, in pain, held her stomach gasping while Zanjasa panicked, advising, "Miss Leica, that's enough." Zeke interrupted. Zanjasa, "Step back. I won't take responsibility if you get hit." Around Leica, a faint aura emanated. He told her earlier, but she has already shown signs. But she has reached the 2nd star level, right? Leica wiped the blood from her face and slowly walked back to the battlefield as the students around gasped loudly, exclaiming, "Isn't that? Yes, that's right. That's the mark of the 2nd star level, a white aura." Reek thought to himself, 2nd star level, this is the state where one can release their power outside the body to use martial skills. The released power is called an aura. Leica adjusted her hair and said, "Thanks. Thanks to you, I have reached the 2nd star level." And now she frowned, looking at Zeke. Leica swung her sword and shouted, "You have no chance of winning now." Zeke dodged her attack and laughed loudly. "That's fast!" Leica slashed towards him again. Zeke pretended to be surprised, but suddenly a small wound appeared on his cheek and Zeke was secretly astonished. "What is this?" He touched the wound with his hand and pondered, "I remember dodging that." Leica stepped forward and said, "See." Leica radiated a faint white aura as she approached, saying, "This is my ability." Leica raised her sword in front of her chest and continued. "Now I have the aura of 2 stars around me, a series of yellow lightning bolts declaring that I will show you the true technique of lightning swordsmanship." Reek stood still, murmuring, "So I will witness a martial skill that I have never seen before." He laughed loudly, and at that moment a light flashed the technique of the great lightning sword. Reek's entire body radiated with lightning that continuously surged forward. Slowly, what is this? He smiled and asked her, "Is it controlling lightning?" "That is just too unreasonable." Leica raised her sword high and spoke loudly to the one who said such words. She plunged the sword straight into the ground and the lightning bolts appeared, shooting straight up. Zeke quickly jumped up high. He seemed to be quite enjoying it. "Lightning net." He smiled, looking at Leica. It was vastly different from before. These lightning bolts were even quite challenging for me now. They above saw this and marveled at what kind of battle this was. Just needing to level up once and everything has changed so much. Janice's face was filled with fear and worry as she observed below. On this side, Zeke was still observing the opponent's weapon and calculating. His own movements were actually quite simple. He hadn't changed much compared to before, but he looked straight into her sharp eyes at the moment she reached 2 stars and gained the aura. Although the power of the great lightning sword technique erupted violently, I thought she was just faster than before. But now she is even faster than that. That lightning bolt is truly mysterious. Zeke smiled and rushed in, able to envelop a person in thunder and lightning like this. I could counterattack now, but I couldn't help but hesitate looking at Leica's sword strikes. I was really curious about what this power truly was. She over here was also smiling with pride. You can still smile in a situation like this. You look very relaxed, huh? If that's the case, Leica quickly slashed a sword at me. I will kick that smile away. Then her foot quickly lifted. Leica immediately used the lightning technique to shift, and I dodged to the side to evaluate this move. It's like a lightning pillar, huh? Then in the distance, an explosion occurred, rocks flying everywhere. Jianjia saw this and quickly jumped off the wall, worried. Reek behind saw this and shouted, "Hey, wait!" At this moment, Zeke was still standing straight up, still wearing that smile. To Leica, it seemed like a provocation, so she quickly launched another lightning strike. He was hit, unable to help but shake one foot down to brace himself, while Janice also ran over at the same time. "Miss Leica, please stop. If you continue like this, why has her voice become mocking? Isn't he still holding firm?" Leica radiated with lightning. "You don't think stopping now would be a humiliation for him, do you?" He was still worried and turned to Zeke, saying, "Sir Zeke, please surrender." On this side, she reminded him, "Actually, I think he's right. You're in a really bad state now. If you surrender and serve under me, I will stop here." Reek bowed his head, smiling silently without answering. Seeing this, Leica also happily said, "So even if you are just an illegitimate child, you are still L2 gone full of pride, huh? I understand now, fine. I will end you with all my strength." Then she raised her sword high. The powerful lightning bolt struck the first secret technique of the great swordsmanship, heaven. The lightning struck directly onto Zeke's body, forming a pillar of light. He was immediately electrocuted to the point of losing consciousness. The sounds of lightning echoed. Jianjia was terrified, calling out worriedly, "Sir Reek!" Then Reek immediately lay unconscious on the ground, no longer moving. Leica then brutally plunged the sword into the ground. She turned her head away, no longer interested, unfortunately, but the match ends here. Just at that moment, a voice suddenly rang out, and I realized. From behind Leica, a column of light appeared. She was startled and turned back. How could this be? How could you have the lightning aura? Zeke was still smiling, standing upright, exclaiming. So this is called the lightning aura. He happily hesitated to answer her question about how it worked. Zeke crossed his arms, appearing very serious, and replied, "I don't know either." Leica was stunned to hear this, and he continued cheerfully, "I intentionally endured your attacks to understand this power. But somehow I can also use it." She repeated once more, "You can use it, isn't that?" Reek thought joyfully. While receiving the mysterious lightning attacks, I continuously used the Dragon King's breathing technique, recalling that at that time Leica was radiating lightning all over. And then what happened? The Dragon King's breathing technique reacted to her lightning, and Zeke's hands began to emit those lightning bolts. And the lightning started to accumulate inside my body. He smiled, wiping the dirt off his face before I realized I could manipulate that amount of lightning. I am not sure of the exact principle, but I must have some special physique. Without waiting, Zeke looked straight at Leica and continued. If we consider the great sword technique, which is a family martial art of her clan, should we assume that her entire clan has a special physique? So he quickly moved towards her, hypothesizing that the source of the power could be based on the nature of lightning. Indeed, this is a wonderful training session. Reek raised his hand and lightning bolts appeared. Moreover, he smiled, clenched his fist tightly, and radiated powerful lightning. Thanks to her, I have also reached level 2. The match is still not over. Zeke's eyes quickly glanced in one direction. At this moment, Leica unexpectedly slashed her sword towards him. Zeke smiled, looking up and said, "It's not over yet." Then the lightning bolt suddenly flashed and he dashed away with incredible speed. After using the new ability, Reek couldn't help but exclaim, "This is..." He silently analyzed the direction of this power in his mind. Currently, as the source of power increases, it affects all nerves and strengthens the body. What an astonishing special physique. All my senses are enhanced. So, Zeke softly told himself, I need to get used to it a bit. On the other side, Zan was still in shock, unable to regain composure during a battle between clan candidates. Just standing by, I found it hard to keep up. I was imagining everything. At this moment, the two of them had already charged at each other. Zeke easily dodged the attacks. He was astonished, silently exclaiming at the thunderous slashes of Miss Leica, who could no longer attack. Leica lost her composure, angrily shouting, "Are you mocking me?" He smiled nonchalantly and said, "I'm not teasing you." Then Zeke quickly rushed in, delivering a strike directly towards her sword. "I truly see you as a formidable opponent." Leica felt its powerful force and immediately stepped back with her sword. He was warming up his body while moving his wrist and laughed. "The distance is here, isn't it? It's time to end this match. Now, it's been a while, hasn't it? How about I create a new technique?" Over there, she was still stunned and asked about the technique. Reek replied, "That's right, the first technique. Or should we call it a secret technique?" At this point, Leica's face lost its composure, fear in her heart at the thought of a technique. So he indeed received training in a martial art. Which secret lineage is it from? He created a technique so simply. I really can't understand him. Suddenly, he appeared in front of her, smiling and saying, "Distracted?" Then Leica gasped, shouting, "Not good," just as she was about to evade Zeke's hand. She was struck directly in the chest as Long unleashed the secret technique, using all his strength to launch a powerful electric attack, causing her to be electrocuted and collapse to the ground on her knees. The voice rang out before Xander's stunned expression as the match concluded. Zeke smiled down at Leica, exclaiming that this was truly an interesting match. She still struggled to stand up, unable to believe it. "No way I can't have lost." Leica clenched her teeth in frustration, determined to become the clan leader. She looked up at the sky with a sad expression, thinking she must defeat her brothers. It seemed that in Leica's eyes, her brothers still looked down on her. "I must become the clan leader. I absolutely cannot lose right now." Suddenly, Rikei spoke up, saying she was truly amazing and very strong. Leica was startled to hear this, and he bent down to add that he had learned new things that were really interesting. "This is indeed a very meaningful time. Zeke reached out his hand in front of her, smiling cheerfully, asking if it would be boring if this was the only time they practiced fighting. "Let's practice again, shall we?" Leica felt a bit embarrassed and emotional as she looked up at Zeke, reaching out her hand towards him and smiling, saying she was really looking forward to the next time. She shook hands with him and then laughed, replying that how could she compare to him as she had lost. A few hours later, inside the rift, a horde of monsters appeared. A man surrounded by them, Banjo calmly watched as they charged towards him. He frowned, and Banjo's eyes suddenly flashed with a fierce killing intent. Behind him, the shadow of a dragon roared, and Banjo muttered, "Dragon's might." He drew his sword and charged at the monsters, slashing in a wide arc. He thought to himself, "Dragon Chi, destroy the formation martial arts formula #1 origin." The sword energy spread out, annihilating a swarm of monsters. Then Banjo sheathed his sword, and the soldiers behind him immediately rushed into the fray as the rift's gate gradually opened. Banjo walked steadily towards the gate. A soldier bowed and reported, "Sir Banzer, I have something to report." Banzer asked what it was. The soldier said that Miss Leica had reached the 2nd star. Hearing this, Banzer stopped. He glanced at the soldier and asked in a low voice, so the soldier awkwardly replied she reached the 2nd star at that age. That can be considered a significant achievement. With Miss Leica's talent, by the time she graduates from Dragon's Cave, she could reach the 4th star or even the 5th star, Banjo coldly declared. "Talent is not important. Just report to me when the girl becomes useful. If you come to report something trivial like this, leave now." The soldier paused for a moment before reporting, "But Miss Leica has been defeated." He asked in shock, "Did she challenge one of the older ones?" The soldier replied, "No. The one who defeated Miss Leica is a child of the same age, Zeke." Banjo murmured in surprise, "Zeke, the child of that woman." He hesitated. It was true that the woman had exceptional martial skills, but Banjo looked at the soldier and questioned, "Even so, she died when that boy was born." "Right. Who taught him the skills to defeat the 2nd star?" The soldier recalled Zeke and replied, "About that. Zeke defeated Miss Leica without being taught by anyone and reached the 2nd star by his own strength." Banjo ordered, "I understand now. Then let's start the first training session." He was astonished and wondered, "I mean, no offense, but isn't it a bit early? They have only been officially trained in combat for about 1 month, and most of the kids haven't even reached the 1st star." Banjo coldly said so. "Whether they learn to fight or not doesn't matter. Death treats everyone fairly, and only the strong can survive. Those who cannot even overcome the first challenge, no matter how many stars they have, are not worthy." He declared himself unworthy of becoming an Eldragon, and the soldiers bowed, obeying his command. Banzer suddenly said to report back to Freya, and he asked in confusion, "Freya, why?" Banzer replied that it was interesting that the kid wanted to defeat Leica using his own strength. He just entered the crack while continuing that Varia would be assigned to monitor the content. Just like the entire process, let her be told to closely monitor the soldiers throughout the challenge. The soldiers immediately shouted clearly, and Banzer scoffed, mumbling, "Zeke, huh? Quite interesting." The next day at the training ground, the students were frantically practicing. Zanza was also trying to improve himself. On Zeke's side, he was carrying stones and weights, thinking to himself, "Long seal combat technique. Plan for today, double the weights of 2 large stones and 1 medium stone. Remember to hold the stance like a goat," recalling that this technique was founded by the 15th master. Although it is called a combat technique, it is essentially a body enhancement technique designed so that even a child can easily master it. Zanzer walked over, puzzled. "Sir Zeke, aren't you going to train?" He immediately replied, "What are you talking about?" "I am training," he hesitated. "Oh no, not physical training. I mean training in long seal combat technique." Zeke calmly replied, "I have already learned it." You are amazed and exclaimed, "What, you just learned it a moment ago and have already mastered it?" He closed his eyes and said, "Of course, more importantly, Zanzer, the flow of your power is going in the wrong direction." Zanzer paused. "Huh." Zeke dropped the stones and weights to the ground and said, "Here, lift your hand," pointing at him. "Look, turn around." Zanzer stood there confused, wondering if he just floated. He mumbled, "Yes." A surge of energy suddenly brightened and transferred energy into his body. Once done, he said, "This is the correct flow," amazed. "Thank you very much, sir." Janessa looked at him and seriously said, "You really have mastered it just as expected since the day Reek." He shouted, "Do you doubt me? What kind of person are you?" Janessa, flustered, replied, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way. Hello, this is the first time I've had someone other than my father teach me, so I've always been desperate." He recalled the encounter between Zeke and Leica and continued, "But you, Zeke, You have enough martial skills to defeat Miss Leica, so I think the long seal combat technique might be simple and boring for you. Zeke crossed his arms and said, "That's not true at all. I am completely impressed by the stability of the long seal combat technique," he thought to himself. "After all, my technique, long destruction, is not suitable for my son. They think it is too complicated and difficult." Reek pondered long destruction combat technique is complex and tricky, but superior in overwhelming strength like a constitution, starting with the first measure and then the second. The third, then the fourth. He thought of an ancient tree along with a silver dragon. Zeke recalled that there was also a secret technique created from the battle with Leica that still exists, the final technique. The technique with overwhelming destructive power from defeating the divine dragon. I am also very curious about other long techniques. Perhaps those martial skills have also been modified, Zeke happily thought. How exciting. Then he smiled and said, "Anyway, I have completed learning the long seal combat technique, so I am training my body as usual. Everyone will learn at their own pace." Zanessa replied, "I understand." Suddenly, Zanessa shouted loudly, "Sir Zeke, I request, please train me. I want you to guide me like before." Zeke looked at him in surprise and continued. "I know that is an embarrassing request, but Izetsu shouted loudly, 'I want to become stronger even just a little.'" Zeke smiled and said, "No, we don't mind." He asked in confusion, "Is that okay?" "Really," Zeke replied, "what is this reaction?" "You are the one who requested it," he continued. "I am not lying to you. On the other hand, you deserve it." At that moment, Lisa approached her, shyly speaking up in that situation. "I also want you to train me," Zanessa exclaimed in surprise, even Miss Lisa. Lisa asked seriously, "Is there a problem?" Lisa sincerely explained, "I thought that no one my age could defeat me, because I am a candidate for the next clan leader position, but in yesterday's battle, you overwhelmed me and somehow unleashed a thunderous aura and used it better than I did." She shyly shouted, "My pride has been completely shattered by you." Ke sighed, "Is it my fault?" Jian, who was beside him, awkwardly laughed, and Li Ka looked at him determinedly and said, "But I want to become even stronger, strong enough to defeat my brothers and you too. So please train me again," she asked if that was okay. Zeke remained silent in thought. Li Ka looked a bit disappointed, "I understand. Because you are also a potential candidate for the inheritance position, training with your opponent might not be appropriate." Zeke stood still, pondering without answering. She accepted silently, thinking back, it is indeed true. He is also a candidate for the heir position. Even though he is an illegitimate child, he is still the son of the clan leader. After a moment of thought, he finally spoke up. "I don't mind, but is your body really okay? That wound should have left you unable to move for a month." Li Ka nodded and recounted, "I used recovery medicine, so there is no problem. You worry about strange things." Hearing that, Zeke leaned close to Janji and whispered, "I understand now. That strange medicine worked like a miracle drug." He replied, "If you mean the vial of medicine during the entrance exam, then that vial. It can't be that effective." Janji pointed at her, affirming that with Miss Leica's personality, she must have used a better one this time. He couldn't help but exclaim, "What a wonderful era, right?" Li Ka's face turned red. "What do you mean by that?" "Without the recovery medicine, I truly wouldn't have been able to move for that month. But more importantly, will you really train me? You must need time to train yourself too." Zeke shrugged and smiled brightly, of course. "I would never refuse an ambitious young person." She frowned, a question mark appearing on her face. "Young person. You are still young too, aren't you?" Even Jan Jensen doubted we are the same age, and he casually mentioned bloodline. That's true. To be sure, Zeke asked her again, "Are you sure?" "Leica, I am the one who defeated you, remember? She was determined. It doesn't matter. I have no right to be picky." Leica clenched her fists, her gaze full of determination. Becoming stronger means becoming the clan leader. "I will do everything." Zeke couldn't help but wonder earlier when you challenged me. You also mentioned the clan leader position, right? Why are you so obsessed with becoming the clan leader? She hesitated for a moment. "Well, that's obvious." Leica slowly explained, "If I do not become the clan leader, marriage will be the only future for me. If I am lucky, this political marriage will make me the wife of a somewhat unpleasant cousin. Otherwise, I will be forced to become someone's concubine." Hearing this, he immediately frowned while she shrugged calmly as if it were a given. Maintaining the bloodline of the Lie Gold is that important. Especially for the 4 great clans, you should know that our true energy is unique, meaning it can be used in countless ways. Zeke suddenly erupted in a fit of anger. "Let's just run away. Those bastards make me feel sick just thinking about the deceitful ones nearby." He clenched his fists in frustration and cursed. "What do they think we are? During the summer, when doing such things, those damn customs will be destroyed," just as the voice of the teacher rang out solemnly. At that moment, Leica, confused about what just happened, asked what was going on, Zeke feeling down at such crucial times. John seemed like she wanted to cry, completely startled. The three of them looked towards the teacher who had just called for a meeting. He announced loudly that starting today, a new instructor would join us. Despite having a busy schedule, he personally came to guide all of you, so be grateful to him. While everyone was still focused on listening, a girl with bright red hair suddenly approached Leica, gently brushing her hair and asking if she was Miss Leica. Leica was startled and turned to look. At the moment of contact, she almost instinctively stepped back. Yan quickly hugged the red-haired girl, pretending to be surprised. Oh my. She winked and praised what a wonderful reflex, and your aura isn't bad either. Zeke, tightly hugged by John thought to himself, I don't sense any presence from her. He trembled and asked, oh my, who is this person? The teacher raised his hand, intending to introduce her. Before he could finish, someone beside him unexpectedly interjected. Still as nimble as ever, Miss FRZRA, she cheerfully waved, hello, very happy to meet everyone. FRZRA glanced at JEKE, probing, and you must be JEKE, right? He replied without hesitation, that's right. She was surprised. You don't seem surprised at all. He calmly replied, because there is nothing to be surprised about, but I wonder what Frieza saw that made her frown. Reek smirked, his pupils shining. It seemed this young lady possessed quite an interesting fighter just stepping out. He couldn't help but think so, that's it. No wonder the clan leader pays attention to this person. Across from him, Zeke also stroked his chin, marveling at her stealth technique, which was indeed impressive. But what stood out even more was the martial skill she had mastered. He was curious. The flow of true energy was mostly concentrated in her lower body, but this type of flow, he had never seen anything like it before. Surely this is why her footsteps made no sound. Even when wearing shoes like that, what kind of martial skill is this? It's really interesting. As she stepped out and turned to walk towards the teachers, her tone became more serious, yet she maintained a friendly smile on her face as she said, as you have just been informed. Starting today, I will be your instructor, so let's work hard together. The other students were excitedly waiting. Isn't that the goddess Frieza in the flesh? Oh my, she's real amazing. The dragon instructor reminded Miss Frieza in a serious tone. Coming here has reached level 6. He is one of the key members of the Black Dragon Guard. Everyone should learn everything they can from him. Hearing this, a group of students gathered around. They whispered and discussed the Black Dragon Guard is the personal guard of the clan leader, right? Why does such a character appear here so suddenly? A bold child raised their hand. Will you really train us? Miss Frieza smiled, of course. Suddenly, a bold child raised their hand, asking, will you really train us, ma'am? Miss Frieza smiled and replied, of course. Just as the students were about to rejoice, Frieza added, but she emphasized only if you pass my test. This statement hit them like a bolt from the blue, and they all covered their faces in despair. The test is sudden. Sai just came out and took out a crystal, encouraging them not to worry. It's quite easy. You just need to keep this crystal intact and try to survive in the Poison Dragon Mountain for 1 month. Long Mountain will be ready in 1 month. Jian gaped. Poison Dragon Mountain. Zeke also paid attention. That name sounds familiar. Poison Dragon Mountain is a land filled with extremely poisonous creatures where even touching a seemingly ordinary blade of grass can be deadly. It must be said that this is indeed a deadly place. He recalled that in his past life he often trained there. And back then, Zeke had curiously tasted a few types of fruits that made his skin crawl. The taste was horrible. He wondered if it was a bit too early for these kids. Sai warned if your crystal breaks or is lost during the challenge, you will be immediately disqualified. A trembling child raised their hand and asked, what if we fail? What will happen? She smiled, of course you will be expelled if you survive. Sai explained that being poisoned can be easily handled by using the dragon technique accurately. As long as you keep your crystal intact, everything will be fine. The chi technique is precise. As long as you keep your spirit stone intact, everything will be fine. Simple, right? Leica spoke up, but sir, there are monsters there. She was surprised. Oh my, then you just need to defeat them. VJ hugged her cheeks and said as if it were obvious, and don't forget to remind them that otherwise, you won't even have food and will die before the test ends. The young students were filled with confusion. Can the dragon technique really deal with such creatures? As she spoke, she smiled brightly, raising 5 fingers to tell them they still had 5 days before the real challenge began. In those 5 days, each person would choose a weapon from the El Hagon family's martial arts origins and start training. She pointed to the table behind her. If you want to find a way to deal with the monsters, then survival will be easier, right? Each person will choose a weapon from the El Hagon family's martial arts origins and begin training. She pointed to the table behind her, saying that if we need to find a way to deal with the monsters. But if you can't master the martial arts within 5 days, Free's voice turned serious. If you can't master the martial arts within 5 days before the exam, I will not be responsible for anything that happens afterward. Within 5 days before the exam, I will not be responsible for anything that happens afterward. Another person voiced their opinion. If the situation worsens, you will help us, right? She waved her hand Omai coldly with the demeanor of an instructor. Omai, this is Eldragon, where the weak are eliminated, and only the strong can survive. If you can't fight back against the monsters, then such an ending is only natural, isn't it? Of course, isn't that right? If you can't even pass such a simple test, then you might as well sleep on the bed with the monsters. Hearing this, the kids couldn't help but sweat, while the 3 reek behind had different expressions. I would rather sleep on the bed with the monsters than hear that. Upon hearing this, the children couldn't help but sweat, while the 3 behind Reek each had different expressions. He found it hard to understand this place is far different from El or Gold that he once knew. In Reek's mind, an imagined image from the past suddenly appeared when he was still a fisherman. He had held his tiny son and excitedly boasted, "Dad, look, this is your adorable grandchild," and now he stood in shock, wondering, "I don't know, but what is going on? Just stepping out to clap once to announce the conversation is enough. Now I will distribute the martial arts manuals for each type of weapon. You all come up to get the manual for the weapon you want." Everyone is confused. "What are you choosing? Which one should I choose?" Zanessa bites her trembling finger. "What should I do? What should I choose?" Zeke steps forward to remind Zanessa that she should choose the spear. She has used it in the entrance exam, right? She suddenly breathes a sigh of relief. "That's right, thank you very much." On the other side, Leica is still hesitating, although she also has the great sword technique, even if it's just the basic level he sees, and immediately stops her. "Wait a minute, Leica." Zeke advises her to choose the sword technique. She has surprised me. "But why?" He turns around, waving his hand lightly, explaining that it will compensate for what she is lacking. Although she doesn't understand, Leica still accepts if you say so. "Then I guess I will choose this one." After a while of choosing, everyone gathers again. "Have you all received everything?" Then in the next 5 days until the challenge begins, VJ reminds you that if you want to survive, practice as if your lives depend on it. Otherwise, just die. Everyone after hearing this turns pale with fear. Only Reek remains indifferent. She suddenly remembers, "Oh, right. There's one more thing. The upperclassmen from the ceremony will try to seize your spirit stones." Zanessa is astonished, and he is delighted. "That's right, just explaining. The seniors from the 15th class will also participate in the challenge, and their task is to take your spirit stones, but because your numbers are larger and the Dragon Mountain is very vast. So you don't need to worry about running into each other, although they will definitely hunt you down, so do your best." After saying that, she waves her scarf and leaves. Jiang Jia touches his pale face, holding his head. "What, not only monsters, but even upperclassmen will attack us?" Leica personally thinks all the students from the 15th class are at least level 2 or higher. Even I can't withstand being ambushed by them at the same time, so most others might not survive. Zeke calmly stretches. "That's right," she angrily shouts. "Hey, you!" He then suggests that if one can't manage alone, then form a small group of 2 or 3 people. Collaborating to hunt monsters is not prohibited, right? Isn't it better to have more people? Hearing that, Leica nods. That makes sense. Jiang Jia, confused, asks, "What will you do, Rake?" He smiles with delight. "Of course I will enjoy the challenge alone." He stares wide-eyed in joy. Leica is worried, but even if it's just you, maybe you really can. Zeke happily walks away. "Come on. Before we start practicing, let's go find something to eat." She is speechless. "You are indeed a strange person." Zanza agrees. "Yes, sometimes that's true." 5 days after the sun just rose above the mountains, the first rays of light pierced through the foliage, waking up the entire forest that was still in slumber. All the students had gathered together. Everyone was tense for the upcoming test, just waiting for the announcement to be made. It truly is a perfect day for a full test, right? Let's get started at the gathering point where the tents are set up. Jiang held tightly onto the spear, feeling a bit scared, whispering to Leica. Finally, the day of the exam has arrived. Leica was feeling both scared and worried, just nodding in response as she watched the other students busily working, some setting up tents, others carrying supplies to help. Jian was rambling on endlessly, even though Sir Zeke said that. But is it really okay for me to go with Miss Leica like this? After all, in this class, there are many people from more prestigious noble families than mine. I'm just a commoner, and I haven't achieved any stars yet. Even after pouring out his heart to Leica, he couldn't help but feel anxious and tremble at the thought of these things. A boy with blonde hair and a girl with green hair approached behind Janji, overhearing all his worries. The girl with green hair was the first to speak up to comfort him. "We're all the same." Zanzer instinctively turned around and saw the two of them. He was on the verge of tears and happily called out to Celine. Jamin looked over at Leica beside him. "I still can't believe that a commoner like me gets to go with Miss Leica." Jamin didn't say anything but nodded in agreement with Celine's words. Leica looked at the three of them beaming. Celine and Raymond encouraged him, saying that whether noble or commoner doesn't matter. "I chose to be with you all because I value your abilities highly." Hearing that, Janjiro tightened his grip on the spear in his hand and succinctly said, "I understand now." His voice was very serious as he promised, "I will do my best. I won't be a burden to everyone." With Janjiro's fiery determination spreading, Raymond also assured, "I will also work hard to not let down." Miss Leica smiled, praising the three of them. "I'm counting on you all." Saying that, she turned to ask Zeke, "But will you really go alone?" Zeke confidently replied, "Of course I can't wait any longer." Celine and Jaimon had heard news about Zeke's identity. Celine looked at him in admiration, unable to help but exclaim, "That's amazing, I've been worried this whole time." Jaimon also expressed his admiration. "So this is the feeling of being of royal blood." Hearing Jaimon's words, Leica loudly and honestly said, "Don't compare me to him, I'm trembling too." Zeke looked a bit surprised and innocently asked Leica, "Are you scared? What is there to worry about?" "Aren't Leica and all the outstanding students gathered here?" Hearing him bring up this issue, it felt like it wasn't a big deal at all. The three of them, Celine, Raymond, and Xander, fell silent, helplessly sharing the same thought. In fact, there are many reasons that make everyone anxious. Sir Zeke didn't care about this issue anymore. Leica teased him, asking, "Do you think they have abilities?" Zeke smiled but seriously replied, "Of course." Looking at Raymond and Celine, Leica had to sincerely praise her abilities. She had successfully gathered promising students. The best in the class, Leica's judgment of people is quite good. After thinking, he confidently stated their defensive and offensive abilities are excellent. Her test will be easy. Although he was already used to Zeke's calm demeanor, the tension in the air at that moment was still hard to ignore. Letting out a bland remark that it wasn't the case, Reek still confidently stood there as Giza and the other instructors approached her casually, asking if everyone was present. Then she looked around at the students and commented, "Oh my, so you all decided to form a team together. It's not a bad choice, since some of you might not be skilled in weapon techniques yet." Just hearing the sound of chicken pho made all the students turn around. Paying close attention to her command after her greeting, she held up her crystal and illustrated, asking if they could start right away. Everyone has their own crystal, right? She held the crystal up and after listening announced the rules of the exam. Your task is to survive for an entire month on Poison Dragon Mountain while keeping this crystal safe. As long as you still have your crystal in hand when the exam ends, the test is over. You all complete your part of the exam and remember all the crystals are the same. Upon hearing this, the students became tense, whispering among themselves. So standing in the crowd, contrary to everyone's fearful mood, Zeke was lost in thought about the loopholes in the rules, coming up with a clever way to bend them in his mind. "If you lose your crystal, just go steal another one." At that moment, Jiga continued explaining the competition setup after you all climb the mountain and find a hiding spot. The upperclassmen will start taking crystals from you. While she was speaking, the two boys were confidently chatting, one asking, "Most of them probably haven't even reached the first star, right?" The other replied, "This will be as easy as pie." Hearing about that challenging trial, the students were once again struck with fear. Just as she finished her speech, she shouted, "Now that the explanation of the rules is done, let's begin. The test has started." As soon as she finished speaking, all the students quickly ran up the mountain, Leica following the crowd, not forgetting to turn back and shout to Zeke, "Zeke, you have to survive." Zeke replied with a and sincerely told them, "You too." Leica shouted back, calling out to the three, Zanzer, Celine, and Raymond, "Let's go." The three of them replied in unison, "Yes," and hurriedly ran after her. At this moment, Zeke was still leisurely standing beside Frieza, casually waving goodbye to them. "Be careful," Frieza, seeing this, asked in confusion. "Aren't you supposed to go too?" Zeke, reminded by her, suddenly remembered and mumbled, "Right, my bad, I got a bit distracted." Then he hesitated and asked, "Distracted? Aren't you worried at all?" Zeke shrugged nonchalantly and replied, "I have nothing to worry about." Then he politely excused himself from the instructor and set off while Leica watched him puzzled, commenting, "What a strange kid." As night fell, the stars twinkled above, and at the foot of the mountain, all the instructors stood guard, not daring to rest, some anxiously wondering if everything would be all right. Hearing this, Leica coldly asked the dragon instructor, "What is it?" He seriously replied, "This test might still be a bit early for the new students." Another instructor beside him added, "That's true. They have grasped the basic knowledge, but only a few of them have reached the star level. And their combat experience is still lacking," he said, smiling wryly, wondering how many would make it through. Leica calmly reassured them, "Don't worry." She analyzed, Poison Dragon Mountain has countless poisonous creatures, but the quantity and quality of the monsters are not concerning. Most of them are only from the first star to the second star, as you can see. "They can basically handle it!" The two instructors had no further questions. The dragon instructor spoke in a low tone, "Yes, understood." Frieza smiled mysteriously, whispering a small plot. "However, I will still release that at the end." The dragon instructor caught a faint sound of her voice, but couldn't quite make out what she was saying. Ben hesitantly asked, "Excuse me, sir. I didn't hear what you just said." Leica, changing her expression to a casual smile, replied, "It's nothing." Then she commanded the selected elite students from the upper class, "It's time! You all should set off!" They were ordered by her and immediately switched to hunting mode, rushing up the mountain while Leica brushed her hair, gently blowing in the wind. As she stepped out, her expression changed to a forced smile, saying it was nothing. At that moment, she commanded the elite students chosen from the upper class, "It's time! You all should set off!" They were ordered by her and immediately entered hunting mode, rushing up the mountain as she brushed her hair gently in the wind. I mumbled to myself, wondering how many will survive. I really look forward to it. The upperclassmen swiftly dashed through the dark jungle, racing up the mountain when suddenly one of them spotted someone. He quietly called out, "Hey, you!" It turned out to be Zeke, leisurely stopping at the base of a tree. The boy was happily whispering that he had just found someone. At that moment, another guy also noticed Zeke and contemptuously mocked him for still lingering in one place after all this time. That guy must be stupid. The first one who spotted him quickly found a bush to hide in, then drew his bow and aimed at Zeke. The arrow flew towards him like lightning, but Zeke calmly dodged to the side. His hand accurately caught the arrow. Zeke gently snapped the arrow in his hand, laughing maniacally and loudly proclaiming, "I've been waiting for you." The three guys were taken by surprise by his action. Instinctively, one of them shouted in confusion, "What the heck is he talking about?" Another one was astonished, exclaiming, "Didn't he just block the arrow with his bare hands?" Zeke said nothing and quickly charged towards the three of them, grinning with delight as he decisively shouted, "Now let the game begin." A series of sounds echoed from the forest following that. A monster suddenly emerged. Celine frowned fiercely and swung her sword, stabbing it directly into the monster's body. Just then, another monster appeared behind Celine. Celine was attacked from behind when Jamon jumped out just in time, using his shield to save her. He then frowned and swung his shield, driving the shield's tail forcefully down onto the monster, sending it back to the heavens. Zanza had just eliminated another monster when, during a break, someone suddenly asked, "Are you all okay?" Jiang Jia responded quickly, raising his head to answer, "Miss Leica, everything is fine." He was surprised by the spoils beside Leica, just as rumored about Miss Leica. While we were all screaming in panic, she had taken down so many monsters. Hearing this, Leica proudly held up 2 fingers, saying, "After all, I did reach the second heartbeat. This is nothing. What's more important is that since a week after the exam started, you all have become quite strong. Celine and Jamin have also reached the first star now." Celine smiled lightly in response, thanks to Miss Leica's help. Jamin also expressed his gratitude. "Thank you, miss." Jiang Jia stood aside, looking at them with a sad gaze. They had both reached the first star. "But I still—" Celine caught that look and immediately comforted Janessa. "You've gotten much stronger, too. You'll reach the first star soon." Raymond nodded. "Don't lose patience." Janessa smiled sheepishly and thanked them. Leica from a distance approached unexpectedly, praising, "Taking down a tree frog by yourself is quite impressive." She was not only encouraging, but also suggested that he train with Zeke before the exam to hone his spear skills. Don't worry too much. You'll reach the first star soon." Jiang Jia emotionally called out Miss Leica. Just then, Leica suddenly looked up at the sky. "All right. The sky is getting dark. Let's head back to the base." The vehicle agrees immediately. It's really dangerous outside at night. The sun is slowly setting behind the mountains and forests not long after the night has fallen. A thin mist gradually spreads throughout the corners of the forest as the group returns carrying their spoils. Jiang called out to Miss Leica. Leica frowned, full of vigilance. "What are you doing at our base?" Just as she finished speaking, a pair of legs stepped out from the forest, and everyone in the group simultaneously raised their guard and drew their weapons. "What?" A tall young man with a sword at his waist smiled gently and spoke, "Finally found you right." Leica tightened her grip on the sword behind her and confirmed. "You belong to the 10th grade class, right? Did you come to steal the crystal?" The senior openly admitted, very accurately looking at the smiling face of that senior. One of the four thought to himself, finally the upperclassmen are starting to attack. And he is a second-level elite, he suddenly spoke. "That's obvious in this test." "But I didn't expect it to be Miss Leica's base." While Leica coldly pointed her sword at him. "So why don't you go back? You can't harm us by yourself." That senior unexpectedly changed his tone in an instant and calmly retorted, "Who said I was going alone?" Leica turned her head and immediately saw another pair of strange legs appear. The blonde girl couldn't help but feel anxious, thinking to herself, 3 second-level elites are right behind. One of them suddenly spoke, drawing his sword at the same time, even if it is Miss Leica. "But carrying 3 weights is quite difficult, right?" So that guy frowned and shouted loudly, "Surrender quickly," in the next moment. That guy did not hesitate to swing his sword down where Leica had just stood. Fortunately, she managed to jump up in time to dodge the blow. The blonde girl hovered in the air and shouted, "Everyone, Selena!" In another corner, the battle began with the second-level elite youth trying to hold on. Raymond on the other side was no exception. He was raising his shield in front of him. Until I turned back, Janessa tightly gripped the spear with both hands, trying to withstand the continuous attacks from the opponent while attacking non-stop and shouting loudly. "Come on, hand over the crystal!" In this situation, Janessa suddenly drifted off, thinking, what should we do? In this situation at some point in the past. Zeke had a confused expression and spoke, "What?" He asked how to take down a strong opponent. Zansetsu, holding his knees, replied, "Yes, I still have no star at all, so a strong enemy appears. I want to know what I should do." Zeke, after rubbing his chin and thinking, suddenly blurted out 2 words, "Give up." The green-haired boy was startled and asked, "What?" He explained that it was clearly true, right? For someone without any stars, fighting a 3rd or 4th level opponent is completely impossible. Janessa couldn't help but exclaim in disbelief. "No way," Zeke suddenly continued. "Anyway, with 1 or 2 stars, it can still be managed." Xander, hearing this, was a bit surprised and turned to look at Zeke, saying, "You're worried about the upcoming test, right?" "If my memory serves me right, most of the monsters in the Poison Dragon Mountain are 2nd level. I heard that the upperclassmen attacking us are mainly 2nd level as well in that case. There is still a way." He suddenly knelt seriously in front of him as if waiting for guidance. Zeke raised 2 fingers, indicating that there was nothing new under Janji's vague gaze. He smiled and said the secret was to exploit the openings, just that, openings. Zeke nodded in agreement that he could indeed take down a level 2 enemy, and even someone without a star like you could turn the situation around if you found their weakness. Zanza seriously asked how to find their weaknesses, and he replied immediately with just 2 words, endure and keep enduring. Zeke leaned slightly, the corners of his mouth curling into a mischievous smile. "Keep enduring until you see the opponent's weakness." The green-haired boy was startled and shouted, "What?" Zeke calmly asked in return. "Why are you surprised? You are facing an opponent stronger than you. Do you think someone as weak as you can do anything?" Jiang Jiaso suddenly tightened his grip on his pants. "That's true, but can I endure?" Zeke immediately corrected him. "It's not about whether you can endure or not. It's about having to endure if you can't. Then taking down a strong enemy is a pipe dream." His words seemed to awaken the boy, and he fell silent for a moment. Zeke gently advised him, "Then, a special opponent like Leica, the electric girl with your current self, you can endure a level 2 opponent. Don't worry too much." Jiang Jiaso slightly bowed his head and murmured, "I think so." He bluntly pointed out that Jiang Jiaso was still quite self-conscious. Zeke stared at him and raised his voice to teach. "Believing in yourself is an important factor in becoming stronger, you know. I know that." But before the green-haired boy could finish, he pointed directly at him and continued, "Let me give you one more piece of advice." Zeke smiled brightly and said, "Don't overthink a problem." Under the unblinking gaze of Jan Jess, he even spouted a philosophical line, "You don't need to think about finding weaknesses or different strengths," while Zanzi So still firmly held the spear in the battle. "Just like you can attack at any time. Just be patient and wait for the opponent to reveal their weakness and use the spear to stab at that weakness." That's all you need to do. The green-haired boy knelt on the ground, stuttering as he repeated the words, "Stab straight with the spear." Zeke replied, "That's right. The secret to defeating a strong enemy is to return to the present." The opponent fighting Zanjiro couldn't help but exclaim, "This guy is tough." Meanwhile, you were both defending and thinking, "That's right. Right now I am weaker than this person, so I have to endure and wait at all costs." Until a weakness appears even though my whole body was shaking, Jiang Jiaso still maintained a resilient expression, trying to withstand each blow. Suddenly the opponent shouted loudly, "Damn it!" He jumped up, preparing to attack the green-haired boy from above. At that moment, Zanjasu suddenly frowned with a determined look, gripping the spear tightly and swinging it forward. A blue star unexpectedly appeared in the center of the vortex. In his eyes, Zanjasu fiercely thrust the spear towards that spot. In reality, he had stabbed the level 2 boy in the stomach, causing the sword in his hand to fly away, in a daze before passing out. He was still unwilling, mumbling, "It can't be." After that, he completely fainted in front of Janji, who was exhausted and panting. The star on his chest suddenly shone brighter than before towards Leica, who was frowning and rushing forward. "It seems like it's done over there." That senior suddenly shouted in panic, "It can't be. I also have 2 stars." But he was just enduring a blow from Leica while gritting his teeth, wondering why the difference was so great. Leica suddenly recalled the book with the axe symbol, and she unconsciously thought that to learn the axe skill, she had to put more effort into the heavy sword. That's why Zeke suggested the axe skill to Leica, who suddenly emitted golden electric sparks aimed at us. Unlucky for him. The senior saw those electric sparks and turned pale, shouting no. In the next second, she unleashed a high-voltage current to shock that senior. It's over. After he fell to the ground unconscious, Leica quickly turned around and upon returning, anxiously asked everyone if they were okay. Leica suddenly noticed Chen Jess beside her, whose eyes were shining like 2 car headlights. In the next moment, all 4 of them cheered in joy. "We won." Celine happily turned to Janjess and congratulated, "You reached 2 stars. "You did it, Zanzer." Zanzer also emotionally replied, "Thank you both. I'm so happy." Leica stood aside, smiling softly in relief. Now everyone has achieved stars. You can stand firm and fight against opponents of the same level now. Then she suddenly turned away, mumbling that she was wondering how Zeke was doing. At the same time, in another part of the forest, sounds continuously echoed from the treetops at night as a young man with tied hair was running for his life as if fleeing from something. He was running while crying out, "Don't come here! Don't come here! Damn it, what is that thing?" The silhouette of a creature stepped on a few of his teammates, suddenly appearing. What kind of monster is that? A girl and 2 students were frantically sobbing as they ran out from the forest, shouting, "Don't come near me!" In another direction, a figure was gently pulling the collar of another person. "What happened to that guy?" "That monster is Zeke. He's smugly holding on to the collars of 2 others, asking, 'What's wrong? Is no one left to play with me?'" Zeke said nothing, but just laughed out loud with delight as the students in front of him ran away frantically without daring to look back. That guy is truly insane. Why is he hunting the upper level when he's a lower level? Aren't we supposed to be the hunters? While still running, a green-haired kid tripped and slammed his round cheek against the ground. He sat up, inching backward in fear. "Damn it, my foot is stuck." Zeke, with his tall back, slowly approached, looking incredibly frightening. "I'm tired of this boring game of tag." Zeke smiled wickedly, his eyes turning white as he extended his hand as if to hypnotize. "Get up! Come here and fight me!" The boy's 2 eyes widened in panic. He seemed to lose consciousness, his eyes completely white, his whole body trembling as Zeke lifted him up. The boy exhaled as if he were about to pass out, his face devoid of any vitality. Zeke looked on helplessly. Oh my. He stood behind and saw the kid lying unconscious while the 2 in front were still running, and he immediately became angry. "Seriously? Why are you all so cowardly and lacking in guts? Didn't everyone fight fiercely at first? Don't leave me behind." Reek lowered his arm, glancing back and considering, "Right, maybe you should observe more closely." Then he was left standing there alone. Everything around became surreal as he just stood there watching. Surely my direction is fine, right? Then I will continue to play comfortably. Another foot suddenly stepped out from behind a tree, revealing a police officer peeking around with a worried and confused expression. "What is this?" He stepped deeper into the forest. He walked past the small trees and slowly looked around, sensing my presence after discovering the powerful lock. Suddenly he froze and stood there, stroking his chin. "In a contemplative way, I must report this." Right in his line of sight was the body of the green-haired boy lying flat on the ground, having just emerged from the darkness. With a gentle expression, he returned to report to the soldier team under her command, clearly receiving the order. One of the three spoke up to announce after a week since the test began. About 30% of the 7-year-old students have been eliminated. However, the remaining students are gradually adapting. The police officer stood straight and continued to express his opinion. I believe this number will not decrease much from the current one. While walking out, he heard the information and asked back, "Is that so?" "And the upper-class students." The police officer hesitated a bit. "The upper-class students." He glanced at his two teammates with a bored expression, urging her, "What's wrong? Speak clearly." Then he decisively answered her question, saying simply, "They are running away." He felt a bit strange while walking out. Not just happily, but also questioning running away from the upper-class students. What are they running away from? She curiously looked at one police officer and hesitantly asked, "What monsters are there on Long Mountain that would make them run away?" The police officer replied seriously, "It's the boy, sir." This answer surprised her. "What did you just say? Zeke, with his ferocity, has frightened the other students into a panic. He is currently attacking the upper-class students." Initially, the upper-class students tried to resist, but now they are all fleeing amidst a group of police officers. Suddenly, one of them shouted loudly, causing a commotion. "Who exactly is this Zeke?" He even started enthusiastically sending the upper-class students off. It was truly something unheard of. A police officer with a curl of hair on his nose suddenly became calm. "With full seriousness, I agree. His son and the clan leader as well. On the contrary, I must say that Zeke in their minds is a person who looks terrifying." His two eyes shone brightly around him, filled with a powerful energy. He was an extraordinary case, far beyond the concept of a genius and reality itself. He resembled a monster, moving out and pressing his finger against his cheek, glancing away in another direction, then recalling his appearance in his mind, finding him quite strange. He deliberately chose to act alone and leisurely set off unexpectedly. Could it be that from the beginning he was not the hunted, but the hunter Zeke, smiling brightly at that moment? And those two eyes were anything but innocent. They were like a monster's. Suddenly, from another direction, a sound echoed that startled a policewoman. What was this sound? He moved out casually, standing there in his coat without a hint of surprise. "Oh my, has it arrived? I've been waiting for so long for a muscular man pushing something heavy to come." "Miss Frieza, where should I place this?" She guided him. "Just put it there. You've worked hard." The entire police team was left speechless, astonished. "What is this, Miss Fan? Don't tell me you intend to release this into Longdock, son. The power of this thing reaches up to 3 stars. With the current strength of the kids, you won't be able to handle it." He moved out, not taking it seriously, her face still bright and smiling, saying, "It's fine. This has been specially adjusted." The police officer with hair at his nose stared at her, asking how she could still smile. "Right, this one only attacks those who have reached 2 stars. Zeke and Leica are the 2 shining factors mentioned, so ordinary kids won't be significantly affected." Suddenly, a voice interrupted, asking, "Is that so?" "But why do that?" He calmly extended his hand and replied firmly, "This is the order of the clan leader." Hearing that, the police officer suddenly froze, his face dripping with cold sweat. Slowly, the clan leader has a mysterious creature with 2 blood-red eyes locked in a cage with a metal frame. And the muscular man who just brought it here, let's see how he handles this. He was so strong that seasoned veterans called him a monster. I wonder if he can handle something like this. Fergie's expression darkened. Feeling very gloomy, she smirked with a cryptic smile. "Let's release it at dawn, transitioning to when the sun shines brightly through the tree canopies in the forest." And Zanessa held a long tube in her hand, looking ahead with curiosity. Celine also sensed something strange. Did the ground just shake a little? Leica, walking in front, frowned and assessed the situation with a serious expression. "What is that?" "It feels so strange." A blond boy beside her looked on innocently. "Are those upperclassmen again?" Zanzar began to voice his random thoughts, causing Leica to feel uneasy. Perhaps it's a monster, like a fierce wild boar or something similar. Her expression worsened. But why does it feel like a loud, violent noise suddenly came towards their group from above? A massive tree trunk was leaning and about to fall. Leica noticed this. She shouted loudly to warn everyone around the tree is falling. "Everyone get out of the way." Their group struggled to quickly escape the impending fall of the large trunk. Once Leica had dodged, she looked back and wondered what was happening. Celine, with a frightened and confused expression, realized it was Janessa trembling in fear as she looked up while the kid next to him, was staring intently at a monster made entirely of stone with two glowing red eyes that suddenly appeared, a golem named Zeke looking up with an indifferent expression. "Is it time already?" He let out a sigh and leaned against the pile he had just caught. Outside, police officers were still patrolling the forest, and we were starting to feel bored. "There's no one left to fight me. It's really disappointing." Suddenly, from afar in the forest, the sound of birds taking flight hurriedly, and a loud noise echoed, startling Zeke at the sudden sounds. A strange presence. He seriously thought to himself about what this was. It has been a long time since a monster of this level appeared. He suddenly looked up, thinking about whether they were trying to imply something by releasing it here. It is the first clan leader from 1,000 years ago, but with the abilities of the kids today, a 3-star opponent might be too much for them. Zeke sat comfortably up high and shook his head. His whole body swayed from side to side. Things like this should have been handled by the professors before the exam started, right? He just stepped out with a smile that seemed very gentle. Again, it's someone with malicious calculations. They might have intentionally released it. What are they really planning? Therefore, he suddenly laughed with a delighted demeanor, his eyes shining like car headlights. But that's even better. Perhaps we will be entertained. Zeke found something interesting and jumped down from above, preparing to leave. "I can't just sit still like this. I'm coming." A 3-star creature. If only it had appeared closer to us, it would have been more fun. Instead, it appeared far away. Over here, Celine was struggling to attack with her sword. Her whole body was knocked back without causing any damage to the golem. Celine just landed and looked up, worried. No way, not a scratch at all. Jamin clenched his teeth tightly and jumped up with his weapon to attack the golem during this time. His expression also showed difficulty when he saw the golem with no damage at all. Even so, it still didn't budge. It was Leica's turn to jump up and deliver a slicing blow, causing a crack on one arm of the golem after taking her attack. Realizing this, she slightly smirked, feeling a bit proud, as it seemed that only when she used her strength could she break the outer shell, meaning this could only be dealt with by someone at 2 stars or lower. Jian fumbled from behind, still gripping his weapon tightly, hesitating to ask her Leica, "What should we do now?" Leica, with a commanding spirit, spoke up, "Everyone listen here." The golem was still looming right in front of them, and Leica announced her plan. "I will distract it while everyone runs away." Her friends disagreed. Janessa firmly stopped her. "No, we can't leave you behind, Leica." Leica still directed her fiery red weapon towards the golem. Her expression focused ahead. She knew saying this was touching a nerve. "But you'll just drag me down." The spot where I just hit on its arm was because I used all my strength and could only make a small crack. The golem, with its massive and sturdy body, standing there like a rock. Its mouth was still puffing out some white smoke. Leica, small in stature, stood in a corner, seriously reminding everyone, "With your current abilities, you can't even make it budge." Celine looked up at her quietly, understanding that it was impossible. "That's right, we can't let it get scratched." Raymond stood firmly in front with his eyebrows furrowed. "But we can still support you, sir." To help Miss Leica greet more accurately, Leica suddenly jumped up, not understanding what was happening, her eyes wider than those behind her. Janessa also picked up her weapon, her eyes shining brightly as she volunteered, "I will do my best." Celine, standing behind, smiled brightly in support. "That's right. If we all fight together under your leadership, who knows, we might actually have a chance." Leica felt a bit moved upon hearing those words. "Everyone?" Leica's mouth suddenly curled into a smile, then quietly spoke, "All right, if so, I will stay behind to gather strength into the sword, while everyone in front was ready. Support me." Leica used all her strength, confidently releasing energy outward as I came here. Leica quickly climbed from behind, wielding the sword with powerful energy, attacking forward, standing right in front of the golem, which was intently watching her and ready to defend itself. When its enormous arm punched down hard, Raymond rushed in with his shield to block for her, his expression increasingly twisted as he braced himself. It seemed the situation was very difficult. Raymond then stepped back, and Celine and Janessa simultaneously charged at the golem while it was focused on the others in front. The golem was caught off guard when Leica jumped up from behind, shouting, and struck down hard with her sword, unleashing a powerful blow. The slash hit it directly, causing a fierce clash that whitened the area, resulting in an explosion deep in the forest that suddenly erupted. A loud, violent shockwave reverberated, shaking the ground, which was bearing the strong golden energy. As Leica landed, she hurriedly rushed to check on Leica. "Are you okay?" She still tried to force a smile, but that last blow had drained all her energy. Leica looked at Celine, who was supporting Raymond, and spoke with concern. More importantly, Raymond, are you all right? He still struggled to respond. I'm fine. Leica felt a bit better. Just then, Leica decisively said something when the golem suddenly appeared from behind. Everyone, we need to return to the base. Suddenly, she was pushed hard by Leica in one direction. Without time to react, she took his place, and the golem grabbed her in its enormous hand. Leica felt breathless and pain with each squeeze from the golem. I was caught off guard, and it can still move. Celine, supporting Jamin, panicked at the sight, worried it was impossible. How can it still move like that? Jamon helplessly called her name in pain, Leica. Without thinking, she grabbed her weapon and charged straight at the golem. Let her go. The golem just lifted its massive arm high and looked down at him with cold eyes. He felt panic seeing that scene. A whirlwind blew in from somewhere, distorting everything nearby. The golem was suddenly pushed back by a strong force, causing it to fall backward. One side of the golem was shattered by the impact, and Leica was thrown to the ground. Janessa took the opportunity to rush in and help her escape deeper into the forest. Are you okay? She muttered incomprehensibly as she walked. But suddenly Zeke appeared with a strange smile, loudly asking, What's all the noise? Leica looked up in surprise, when she felt a sense of familiarity nearby. This voice is Zanza! She recognized and called his name Zeke. Zeke suddenly jumped out from behind a large bush, moving swiftly. What's going on here? He seemed intrigued and looked toward the golem in front, asking, What is this earth puppet?